Hi everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my monthly wrap up, so all the books that I read in the month of July. So July ended up being a month, to say the least. It felt like it never was going to end. Job hunting, and also at the end of last month, beginning of this month, I sprained my ankle. A very bad sprain to the point where we might think it's a fracture, but we're not sure. It's starting to get better now after about 4 or 5 weeks. And then at the beginning of the month, I had to put my 17-and-a-half-year-old childhood dog down that I've had since I was 12. So somehow I was able to read this month. My enjoyment of it has been ebbing and flowing, so I've just kind of been only reading when I really want to. But it's resulted in a lot of really good reading, and I was able to read a lot off my TBR. So let's really quick cover the manga that I read, and then we can go into the books. So starting off with keeping up with my series, I read Yona of the Dawn Volume 44 by Misaho Kusanagi. This is a shoujo manga that I've been following for forever now, like almost 10 years. This is a royalty fantasy series following a young girl who has to escape her kingdom when a coup begins. She's kind of like a spoiled princess type, and then she's really learning about the world around her, and I love her growth. I love the characters she meets along the way. We're finally nearing the end of this series and getting into some stuff that I predicted like years and years and years ago, so it's so intriguing and fun, and I'm really excited to see what happens next. After that, I read Kimi ni Todoke Volume 13. This is another shoujo title. This is a slice of life, romance, friendship story, coming of age story, and it's about a group of high schoolers, but mainly focused on our main character, who is Sawako, who is just kind of perceived wrongly by her peers to be kind of scary and witchy and terrifying. And this whole series has to do with the idea of like perception. Really lovely, very sweet. I've been really enjoying reading this series. And then to kind of round the manga out, I read the Apothecary Diaries art book. There isn't a lot to read in here like the Haikyuu art book, which I really loved. It's much more about just the pictures and the art of the light novel series. I get that this is an art book for this particular artist. I really love seeing like how much she's grown through her career, but I would have liked just like a little bit more behind the scenes stuff. It would have been interesting to compare the light novel art to like the manga art, the anime art, you know, showcase a little bit more of Apothecary Diaries to give us a little bit more behind the scenes. It is pretty sparse in like the interview and detail stuff, but if you are a fan of the light novel series, I think you really will enjoy this. You get to see those beautiful images in color, and again, you really get to see the progress that this author has made. Like the first pictures are amazing, they're good, but the end of the series, her most recent arts are just phenomenal. Like I can just see that progress, and it's so fun to see. So highly recommend if you are an Apothecary Diaries fan. And then finishing out Apothecary Diaries light novel stuff, I also read the 5th light novel. The 6th one is just about to come out, so I will be picking up that when it comes out. But this is a historical, it's not really historical because it's set in a fantasy setting, but there's no magic. So like a historical drama court intrigue series. And it follows our main character Mamo, who is an apothecary, but also kind of becoming a detective in the inner court. Because light novels are like serialized, almost similar to like how a webtoon is now serialized, the pacing and the story beats are just very different than what you'll get a lot of times in like a traditional novel, even a series. So I just really enjoy going at a different pace, just reading something that just has a very different setup than like a traditional Western novel. You're following a fun group of characters. It's lush, it's vibrant. A lot of the characters have a lot of eccentric traits, which I find really endearing, and I really recommend this series. But I do recommend watching the anime first, because I feel like, again, throwing yourself into a light novel series when you're not used to it, it's going to be a little bit different than you're used to. So now getting into novels, I was able to read 3 novels this month. One of them was very chunky, so you'll understand why. No, I actually read 4. Yay. So let's talk about the one that I read via audiobook, and that is going to be I Who Have Never Known Men. I forgot to say, the other thing I did this month is I released my Goodreads video, and it is very friendly to the YouTube algorithm, and suddenly I'm getting all these comments and likes and subscribes to my channel. This is very weird for me. So if you are a new viewer, hello, hi, I do normal booktube stuff, and I'm also implementing a lot of my stats videos. I have a lot of exciting ideas and videos to come with more stats, but the other thing coming up is going to be the Goodreads video part 3, which I'm already working on, and I'm also reading for so that I can complete the challenges. So for one of our first challenges, I read I Who Have Never Known Men. And since I'm going to do more of the stats in that video and talk less about what I read, I will discuss it here. So this is a dystopian novel. It is French. I don't know if it's been recently translated or if it's just becoming popular all of a sudden because of the big dystopian craze right now with everything that's happening in the world. So this was originally published in like the 1990s, late 1990s. It's becoming popular now. I think it would be kind of penned as like a feminist dystopian, similar maybe to like a Margaret Atwood, Handmaid's Tale kind of situation, but less sexual violence, less about birthing and pregnancy. And it's more like this nihilistic dystopian take. Basically, it's about a group of women who are in this underground bunker. They don't know why they're there. The main character was very young when she was taken. They don't know what's happened. She doesn't understand the world because she never had like the experience of like growing up really. And so one day when something happens and they go to the surface, so it's like post-apocalyptic, dystopian. It's one of those series where you never really get the answers. And I do want to say, I feel like it is very second wave feminist. When I mean second wave feminist, I mean very much a white woman story. You know, it's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing, but this book is very much like taking out of the context of what these characters are from. The country they're from is never named, the places they're from is never named, the language they're speaking in, what they look like, never really named. I think it's to give like this feel that this could happen anywhere, but to me, it just really feels like this is a bunch of white women. Race, sexuality is not really discussed. This book is trying to make it so that this could be enjoyed or understood by anybody, but I really don't think you can take away the context that this was written by a French person with French ideals and French like understanding of philosophy in the world. It might be Belgium, but Western European. It's very Western European. I'm sorry, but it's like it's never going to be a universal story in some ways. Do still think it's worth a read. It's interesting. Just a dystopian novel that's going to be written in 2025 or later is going to be a lot more interesting, a lot more inventive. I don't feel like this did anything special or anything I hadn't seen before, but again, it's an older novel, so maybe it was more revolutionary in its time, but for me, it was fine. It was interesting. It was a quick read, but it was like a 3-star for me, just middle of the road. I would recommend other dystopian before I recommended this one, but I wouldn't not recommend it. So going into the other novels I read, I am making my way through the Terry Pratchett Discworld series, and I read Equal Rights. I have read 3 of the Witches books, but I knew not to start with this one, so I finally returned back to it. So this is one of the first novels that Terry Pratchett wrote, and in the later books we see a slightly different version of these characters as Terry Pratchett kind of figured out what he wanted to do with them. So this story is following Grandma Weatherwax, who we love and know, but kind of in a different form than she takes in later novels, and it is her taking on an apprentice, a young girl who is learning to be a witch but really should be learning to be a wizard. That was kind of her destiny and the kind of struggle of the society to accept her, because women are always witches and men are always sorcerers or wizards, and the two do not intermingle. So it's a really interesting take. I kind of wish this idea was explored more. I like Grandma Weatherwax having an apprentice. I like this idea of a woman in the wizard school. So I really enjoyed this. It's fun. Again, it's not really canon to the Discworld, but I enjoyed it. I can see why you wouldn't start with this one, but it's still interesting and fun nonetheless. But I will say some things for Terry Pratchett hold up a little bit better than others. He was writing in the 80s and 90s, very well-meaning, but sometimes missing the mark, especially for our modern sensibilities. So be wary of that. But I think what really helps Terry Pratchett stand out in this day and age is that he's never really making fun of people. He's always making fun of the people that disparage minorities, and it's sometimes I feel like a little bit more subtle than our modern sensibilities like to have. I feel like subtlety and irony and humor is not really, I don't want to say accepted in our day and age, but we are just a lot more sensitive to how things are put down, and so that subtlety is not really working for a lot of people right now. I feel like it might go over some people's heads and they might be offended, but I don't know. Try him out, see if you enjoy him. But I did want to give some warnings because I feel like people don't discuss that aspect of it very much. And then the other book that I read by him is the second Watchmen book, which is going to be Men at Arms. So there's kind of like mini series in the Discworld that you can read. I started with the first Watchmen book, went to the Witches, love the Witches, am kind of trying to sprinkle other Discworld books throughout. So I went back to the Watchmen. I really love this cast of characters. In this story, we are getting new guardsmen to the watch. There's kind of a different dynamic going on, and then something nefarious happening in the city. Kind of a little bit of following up with stuff that happened last time around. I love the characters of the Watch. Again, they are eccentric, they're funny, they're ridiculous, ridiculous and over the top, but I will say the Witches books are slightly shorter than the Watchmen books tend to be. I think it's really funny because a lot of people say that the Witches books kind of wrap up too quickly, and I have felt that, but I feel like the Watchmen books also have a pacing issue with the middle section. The kind of like Monty Python like back and forth humor, I feel like does drag the middle section of the book down like slightly every time I read a Watchmen book. So like I love the characters, I find the plots to be interesting, but sometimes I feel like they get a little bit bogged down towards the center of the story where I'm like, okay, let's get into the endgame stuff. But still, again, I love these characters. I find them really fun. This ended up being like a 3.5, and Men at Arms is like a 4, and then the other Witches books are like 4 and 5 stars respectively for me. So that's how I'm kind of feeling. Weird Sisters and then Lords and Ladies are still my favorite that I've read so far. But getting into the final book that I read this month, I have City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the first book in this adult fantasy trilogy. I believe it's the Davenport trilogy, and this is like part adventure fantasy story and then part like court intrigue, politics, magic story. So in this book, we're following our main character, I would say Nahari, who is a young girl who is kind of a con artist. She wants to learn to be an apothecary and also maybe travel and learn medicine. She has like this innate ability to heal people and to understand their illnesses. One day, she accidentally summons a Djinn who is this very powerful person named Dara, and he's like, no, you are not supposed to be in the human world. I'm gonna take you to the magical city of Davenport where all the Fae, they're basically Fae, but they're Djinn, where they live. So we're following them traveling to Davenport, and then we are also getting Ali, who is the second son of the king of Davenport. It's kind of like the court politics around these different groups of Djinn and also the like half Djinn. There's also like this evil force of Djinn that were like pushed out thousands of years ago that are trying to like mess with humans but also like get their power back in the Djinn court. And so it's like all this court intrigue and squabbling, and then this like bigger force like kind of hanging over as a threat. So this book is a lot of setup. It's a lot of introducing the court politics. The ending, the last 100 pages really kick up and it really gets exciting. And I'm really excited to see where the rest of this series goes because it left very big thing happening. But yeah, I've heard amazing things about this series. I've wanted to read it for so long. I was intrigued by it, especially because I feel like people don't really explain what it's actually about. I really enjoyed it. This is definitely great for like fantasy readers that love adventure, that love court politics. It also has a little bit of like that romance, will they, won't they, dark, I wouldn't say enemies to lovers, but definitely like there's bad blood between the different characters because of like the dynamics of what's happened in the past between different groups of people. There's like that kind of romance if you're interested, but it's not too focused on the romance. So yeah, there's a lot to love about here. It's really well balanced. Action, court politics, magic, romance, characters, character dynamics. My favorite relationship was actually a friendship relationship between two of the characters. I'm so excited to read the next books in the series. This was like a solid 4-star to me. I did feel myself dragging a little bit until we hit the last 100 pages. I was like in the 350, 400 range, and I'm like, okay, is stuff gonna be picked up? Is more stuff gonna be explained? I'm a little worried that things don't feel fleshed out, and then like the last 100 pages cleared that up, like thank God. But like this is solid, good, but like I think the next 2 books could be even better. I know this author now. I've enjoyed her work. I feel like only more good things are set to come. And so that was the big book that I read this month. So I was able to read a lot off my TBR. I think everything was books that I had on my TBR except for Men at Arms. I started a series, but I was able to continue some other series. Besides it being kind of an awful month for personal reasons, like not a great reading month because of that, I did have a very productive month, especially with my Goodreads video. I'm so thankful, and I can't believe that it's kind of blowing up. I know that under 10,000 views is not that much, but for me, this is really weird because I've been on here for 10 years and I've never had this happen before. So more videos to come for that. Stay tuned. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading.